Under a Noonday Sun by Zeranski. Joe parked his car along the side of the driveway, about halfway off. The tires crackled in the gravel. The day was clear and hot. He had arrived to make his visit to this quiet section of the cemetery, far from the passing traffic. He opened the windows of the sedan, and Waldo, the shaggy mongrel, sat up and rested his chin on the frame of the open passenger side window. "I won't be long." Joe reached back and touched the flank of the dog, who then licked the caressing hand. He pulled the ignition key loose, slipped it into a pants pocket while getting out of the car. He adjusted his ball cap, then paused, remembering, and pushed a button on the dashboard, unlocking the trunk with an audible thunk. A small arrangement of flowers there was part of his reason for the visit. He went back and opened the lid. The perfume of the blossoms rose strong in the dry heat. He studied the little bouquet, a cluster of white and yellow petals in a green plastic holder. He reached in and took it in hand, and closed the lid and stepped onto the soft green of the manicured grounds. He weaved his way between the chunks of marble and flat bronze plaques to avoid stepping on the graves, a cautionary path as if traveling a labyrinth to reach some mythic center. The sun bore down, and intense heat hit the back of his neck like spattering oil. He wished he wore shorts instead of the khaki work pants, but the visit wouldn't be long. From where he parked, he recognized the pine tree that marked his destination, so there wouldn't be any wandering among the rows. Nearby was a freshly prepared grave, a mound of earth covered with green mats, and an excavator. A cemetery employee sat on one of the wide excavator tracks, his ball cap set low over his eyes. He smoked. Joe waved, recognizing Ben Quayles, but Ben didn't see him. Walking a little closer, he waved again. This time Ben had just looked up and waved back, work gloves still on his hands. Working his way among the grave markers, Joe directed his route to where Ben smoked and looked down as if considering the open grave. "Hey, Ben, how you doing?" "Fine, and you?" Ben adjusted his ball cap with his cigarette hand. "Good." Joe took a seat on the track next to him. He looked at the open grave. "Do I know them?" Ben shook his head. "I don't know either. Nice family, though. I was there when they came into the office." He pointed back over his shoulder with a thumb to where the administration's building stood near the entrance to the cemetery and the road leading into town. "But most people are nice. Nice and sad." Joe looked at him. "Nice and sad?" "Yeah, nice and sad. It's the way they should be. It's the way I would be." He pointed at Joe's bouquet and said, "Who are they for?" Joe held the flowers up. "My nephew's wife." Ben's forehead wrinkled with an effort of recollection. "Julia." Joe provided the answer. "Ah, yes." Ben shook his head as the added detail fitted into place like a puzzle piece. "That was bad." Joe nodded. "A really nice girl. A stroke at 30. "About a year ago, wasn't it?" "Yeah. A lot of people showed that day." Ben took the last puff on his cigarette, stubbed it out on the excavator track, and stuffed the butt into the watch pocket of his denims. "Getting back to work?" Joe started to rise from his seat. "No, relax. I'm waiting for Izzy Loomis to bring in the vault." Joe knew the vault as the concrete box inserted into the grave. Then in went the casket, and on went the concrete lid. Ben pushed back the cuff of his work glove and glanced at a wristwatch. "He's running a little late." Joe nodded. "Well, I'll pay my respects and come back if he doesn't show. How about that?" "Sure." The cemetery worker fished a crumpled cigarette pack from the breast pocket of his t-shirt. Joe walked for a dozen yards, hearing the bristling of each footfall, the heat of the day having slowly sucked the moisture from the grass. He looked at the passing markers. Grave after grave, year after year, births and deaths, the beloved. All still. And there she was, a marble headstone engraved with a vine of roses. He stood, hearing a bird chirp, a distant rush of traffic, but inside him was a silence as he looked down and felt strange, not lost, but empty in a way. What he saw moved past the marble stone, past the grave to the image of her and his nephew. They smiled and laughed and talked, and then that all stopped. Nothing more would come, the way there was nothing more to remember, but the loneliness of his nephew, Mark, and the way things might have been. He'll be fine, Julia. You know that. It's been rough for him, but it'll work out. Ben knelt, touched the face of the headstone. A warmth like flesh came through his fingertips. He pushed the spike of the flower holder into the earth and stood, clasped his hands, in a quiet moment of what seemed to be eternal thought. The grumble of a truck drew his attention back. He spotted a flatbed circling up the driveway with a winch, a gray concrete vault, and what looked like a motorized dolly on the bed. The truck stopped near Joe's car. Waldo peered out, then disappeared again to lie in the shade of the car. Joe went back to join Ben, who still sat smoking, not in a rush. "I guess I better get going so you can get back to work," he said. "Izzy still got to get the vault off the flatbed, and he needs that hydraulic dolly that's on the truck. I'll just get in the way if I try to help, so just take a seat." Again, Joe took the same spot on the track of the excavator. Ben wiped his face and neck with a red bandana, then stuffed it into his back pocket and said, "It's a scorcher, isn't it?" The noonday sun blazed out of the pale sky. "You know, I like it. It needs boundaries. I take care of all of it. Cutting the grass, pruning the trees," he nodded to himself, "and burying the dead. When no one else is here, I'm here. It's just me and them." Ben held out his hands to the whole of the cemetery as if to fill his arms.